They took my sister instead of me. Now they finally know who she really is. I'm 23F. My sister Sienna is 18F. Our parents? Loving, hardworking, and for as long as I can remember, selectively blind. Sienna was born after years of failed fertility treatments and one devastating stillbirth. When she arrived, the house filled with balloons and casseroles and a kind of hushed gratitude that never really left. She was the answer to every prayer, the smile after the storm, the God heard us child, and I, 2 grades ahead, older by 5 years, became the reliable one, the one who understands, the one who shares. And to be fair, I loved Sienna when we were little. I loved helping with pacifiers and bedtime stories. I loved the way she'd curl into me during thunderstorms. I loved her enough that it took me years to admit what I already knew at 9 years old. My sister could cry on command. The first time I noticed it was during a game of hide and seek. I'd tucked myself behind the couch with a paperback, assuming I had at least 5 minutes. Sienna found me in 30 seconds, snatched the book, and ripped a page clean out. I yelped, "Hey, that's my library book!" She blinked, big and wounded, held up the torn page, and then tears. Instant. Our mom rushed over. Sienna pointed at me, hiccup crying about how I'd shoved her. Grounded. Me, not her. That was the template. Sienna did the thing, I became the story. As we grew up, she graduated from page ripping to precision strikes. If I liked a shirt, it appeared in her dance bag with an, "Oops, I thought it was mine." If I had friends over, Sienna floated in with snacks, compliments, and a little grenade like, "Did you guys know my sister used to sleep with a nightlight until she was..." Boom. Giggles. My face a matchstick. The worst blow landed on my 17th birthday. Our grandparents gave me a small velvet box containing a delicate gold locket. Family heirloom, passed down the oldest daughter line. Inside, a tiny photo of our great-grandmother and a pressed forget-me-not. "For luck," Grandma whispered. That night, the chain snapped. I found the locket under my dresser with a smear of sticky lip gloss across the engraving. Sienna shrugged. "You left it on the bathroom counter. That's not my fault. My parents were consistent. She didn't mean it, she's impulsive, she's sensitive, be the bigger person. So I got bigger. I moved out for college across the country to Seattle, landed an entry-level role in UX at a mid-sized tech company, and built a life that didn't require me to lock my bedroom door. I kept contact with my parents. I muted Sienna on everything. Then in spring, my dad's heart betrayed us. Not fully, thank God, but close. A blockage, a stent, a week of steady beeping monitors and hospital socks. I flew home the same night my mom called me because there's something about hearing your mother say, "Your father," that makes you sprint, even if you've spent years practicing adult detachment. He survived. He turned soft. He started making omelets and sitting in the yard at sunrise. And one quiet morning, with toast crumbs on his plate and pill bottles lined like a tiny skyline on the counter, he said, "Let's go somewhere, just the 4 of us. No phones, no work. I want a week where the day ends with salt in my hair and your mom's hand in mine." I said yes before he finished. Sienna said yes with a shrug that read like italics. If I have to. The plan became Portugal. Dad had always wanted to see the tiled facades in Porto, drink coffee until noon, and eat late by the river. He booked a small family-run guest house with 3 rooms, one for my parents, one for Sienna, one for me. He happily emailed itineraries and walking routes, heroic spreadsheets color-coded like a Care Bear exploded. I told work I'd be unreachable. I set my Slack status to family. I bought a new pair of sneakers and a sundress that didn't wrinkle. And on the day of the flight, I hugged our ancient dog, checked my passport for the 15 millionth time, and loaded my suitcase into the car. At the airport, everything looked normal for about 10 minutes. Then the kiosk said my record locator was invalid. No big deal. I've seen kiosks lose their mind before. We tried an agent at the counter. She frowned, typed again, squinted at the screen like it might blink first, and then carefully said, "This reservation shows 3 passengers. Your parents and... Sienna?" My dad blinked. 4. I booked 4. My other daughter... He gestured at me, suddenly terrified that he'd manifested me out of thin air. "I'm so sorry," the agent said, and she truly looked sorry. "Your name was canceled online last night. The rest are intact." There are specific noises older men make when blood pressure surges and wears a Hawaiian shirt. My father made 3 of them. My mother squeezed my forearm. I looked at Sienna. She didn't grin. She didn't smirk. That would have been obvious. She tilted her head, just slightly, and blinked twice like something had floated into her eye. If you didn't grow up with her, you would have called it nothing. I called it a signature. Dad demanded supervisors. Mom asked if they could put me on a later flight. The answer, maybe for a fee, but it would land me at 2 a.m. in Lisbon with no connecting train until morning. My dad started to say, "Then we'll all delay." But Sienna was faster, a small gasp. "Dad, your cardiologist said you shouldn't stress. We can't do another day of this." She placed a hand on his sleeve, a touch so practiced it felt like choreography. "Please." Here's the part I am not proud of. I stepped back. I said, "Go." I said it because my dad looked like a man trying to hold water in a fist, and Sienna's eyes were already glossy, and because I did not, in that moment, want to spend a week sleeping behind a door she could open. They hugged me at security. Sienna didn't. I went home. I told myself I'd turn the week into something good. I made a list called Seattle Staycation and filled it with small, unambitious things. Buy basil, finish my book, nap without guilt. The first night was fine. The second night was quiet. On the third, at 3:17 a.m., my phone started to vibrate so hard it skittered across my nightstand. I answered before the second ring. "Mom?" She was crying, the hiccup kind, where words arrive in pieces. "It's your father. Not a medical emergency. He's okay. But we can't find his pills." My dad's post-stent cocktail wasn't complicated, but it was crucial. Beta blocker, statin, baby aspirin, nothing dramatic, everything necessary. He'd packed 7 days' worth in a bright orange organizer. According to my mom, days 2, 3, and 4 were empty when they shouldn't be, and day 5 had only 1 pill left. He swore he'd taken them correctly. She believed him. I believed him. He's the type who peels off the TUE sticker the second he swallows Tuesday. "Maybe you packed fewer?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "I counted 3 times," Mom said. And there's something else." Mini cliffhanger, right? This was not the something else I expected. She lowered her voice. I went into Sienna's room to borrow sunscreen. I know I shouldn't have, but the pharmacy was closed and I burn and... She stopped. On the other side of the world, she took a breath. The pill organizer was in her nightstand. Silence can be an instrument. I let it play for 3 beats. "Mom, are you sure?" "I took a photo," she whispered, as if photos require stealth. I heard a new sound then, my father's voice, low and old. "We confronted her. How did she—" "It was like lighting a match in a dry field," Mom said. "She screamed. She said we were punishing her for inviting you. She said Dad loves you more now because you almost made him die from worry, and that she was teaching him to pay attention." She threw a glass. It shattered. The owner knocked, and when he asked if everything was okay, she told him to mind his... A gulp. They called the police. Sienna had never met an authority she didn't test. According to my dad, when officers asked for her ID, she demanded theirs first. When they told her to calm down, she performed the opposite. When they said ma'am, she said don't ma'am me. The country they were in, Portugal, is patient in many ways, but there's a universal line between stressed tourist and combustion device. She crossed it. They took her to the station, processed her, and kept her overnight to cool. My parents went back to the guest house with a paper slip and a headache. And then the second thing happened. In the morning, ready to get her released, my parents discovered their passports and 2 wallets were gone. "Maybe Sienna took them for safekeeping?" I offered, as gently as you can offer something that's actually a hypothesis shaped like a knife. Mom's breath stuttered. "We think so. The owner said no one else had access to our rooms. Your father..." Her voice broke. "Please help." I put on sweatpants and sat down at my laptop. Western Union transfer. Hotel phone number. Nearest U.S. consulate. I built a tiny bridge of logistics while listening to my parents move through the slow-motion horror of realizing the child you defended is the person you'd lock your purse around. "We can't leave without passports," Dad said, practical even in panic. "And if I don't take my medication tonight, He didn't finish the sentence. "Here's what you're going to do," I told them, and my voice clicked into a tone I use at work when a product breaks 10 minutes before demo. "First, report the passports missing to the local police. You'll need that report to get emergency travel documents. Second, I'm sending you money now. Third, do not confront Sienna until you have those documents in hand. She wants chaos. Starve her." It's strange how quickly your parent becomes a person on the other end of your competence. It's sad, and it's a privilege. They thanked me like you thank someone who returned your dog. By late afternoon their time, Sienna remembered where the passports were. She'd hidden them from the cleaning staff in the lining of her suitcase. Money arrived at the front desk. My parents bailed her out. She emerged with blistered pride, refused to speak to me on the phone, and posted a blurry story captioned, "Family is poison," because villains still love punctuation. They came home 3 days early. Jet lag is heavy enough to bend an argument's orbit. For 24 hours, my parents and Sienna moved through the house like planets with miscalculated gravity. My dad started to say things like, "Sienna, we need to talk." And my mom started to say things like, "Now we don't want to fight." And Sienna started to slam doors in a dialect that translated to, "I am central. See me spin." On the second night, my mom called me again. We asked her to move out. The words were so light they floated. We said we'd help with a deposit, we'd pay for therapy, we'd do it all kindly. She said, "You're abandoning me and I'll tell everyone what you did." "What you did?" "She said we neglected her," Mom whispered, as if the word itself could file a report. "She said she'd go to the hospital or the police or social media and tell them we starved her as a child. She said she'd ruin us. My parents are known in our small town. My father taught physics at the high school for 30 years. My mother has run the same dental practice forever. Their reputations are built of tiny bricks that can be pulled by careless hands. Sienna knows this. She's always known where the power outlets are. Call a lawyer, I said. Tomorrow morning. We will, Mom promised. But tonight? The sentence never finished because at that exact moment in the background, I heard something shatter, a plate, then another. Then my father's voice, louder. Sienna, put it down. What is she holding? I asked. There's a special cold that starts in your ribs. A knife, Mom said. This part is simple in the report and complicated in the heart. They called 911. The officers arrived. Sienna, in full glory, called them names designed to taste like gasoline. They took her. My parents didn't press charges beyond what the state requires for an assault by threat with a weapon. They didn't want her to have a record. They wanted her to understand there is a floor beneath which a family cannot live. The lawyer helped them file a formal eviction with all the familiar and dehumanizing steps. Notice, court date, order. The house found its true size without her. Silence filled the rooms like a first snow. My parents cried in it. They slept in it. And then they flew to me. The first night in my Seattle apartment, my mom walked slowly through the hallway like she was touring a museum of how daughters live when they can lock their doors. She stopped at my tiny balcony garden and smelled basil, actually smiled, and then turned to me with years behind her eyes. I am sorry, she said, and it was the kind of sorry that bends you. My dad took my hands. We called you dramatic. We called you jealous. We called you things you were not because we were afraid of calling Sienna what she was becoming. What was that? I asked. Not because I needed the word, but because they did. Cruel, he said. And then softly, sick, maybe. I don't know what she is, I admitted. I know what she does. We talked until midnight, my parents and I, swapping receipts like a deposition of love. I told them about the locket. They flinched like the cut was fresh. I told them about the canceled ticket. Dad actually apologized to the airline agents out loud, as if they could hear us through time. They told me Sienna had been expelled from a dance team for bullying a girl 2 years ago, and they'd hidden it to protect her future. I told them protecting a future is not shielding the present from consequences. They nodded like we'd just invented that idea. The next days were the first family vacation we should have had. We walked in the park. We ate too much sushi. Dad insisted on wearing a tourist hat in his own daughter's city. The world was ordinary and therefore holy. And then, because life refuses to be edited for neat endings, Sienna texted my mother a photo of a bruise on her forearm and a caption, "Look what you made me do." As if injuries require genealogies, she demanded they rescind the eviction, send her money for emotional damages, and write me out of the will to prove their loyalty. My mother handed me the phone and asked the question every parent dreads hearing themselves ask. How do we love our child without letting her bury us? This is where people in the comments usually split into teams. Team, cut her off forever. Team, mental health crisis. Team, she's a narcissist. Run. Team, you're the narcissist. I don't have a jersey. I have boundaries. Here's the new deal, I told my parents, and we wrote it down like a treaty. We will support Sienna's rent for 3 months only if she signs a lease in her name, attends weekly therapy, and signs a release that allows the therapist to confirm attendance. Nothing else. We will not tolerate threats, property damage, or harassment. Any incident triggers a 911 call. We will not respond to messages sent after 9 p.m. or containing insults. We will not discuss private family matters with third parties to defend ourselves on social media. Reputations survive better than feeding trolls. We will not apologize for enforcing boundaries we should have established years ago. If you think that sounds cold, you grew up in a house where consequences were love's shadow, not its enemy. The eviction went through. Sienna moved in with a friend who posted 5 stories a day about crystals, moon water, and manifesting compassionate accountability, which is a beautiful phrase when it's followed by action. Sienna went to exactly 3 therapy sessions. She attended the first 2 on time, took selfies in the lobby, and posted them with captions like, self-care era. She arrived 40 minutes late to the 3rd, filmed an angry story about ableist therapists, and never went back. She tried to bait my parents with silence. 12 days of nothing, during which my mother aged 5 years and then regained 3. She tried to bait me with nothings that felt like somethings. A DM request from a brand new account that said witch and a skull emoji. A comment under an old photo of my dog that read, hope he chokes. I reported, blocked, documented, and did not reply. When the first month's rent came due, Sienna sent a text with a Venmo request for double the amount. You owe me for everything you put me through, she wrote, like debt accrues by volume of tantrum. My dad declined it. Not paid less, not paid what we promised, declined. It was a line drawn with a finger pressed hard enough to leave a groove. 2 days later, Sienna came to the house. They didn't let her in. They spoke through the door because the last time they opened it, a knife joined the conversation. Sienna shouted things I won't repeat. The door didn't. The neighbor across the street pretended to water his grass. My mom called me when it was over and said, I didn't shake. Progress can look like stillness. In the quieter weeks that followed, my parents learned the boredom of a nervous system that isn't always spiking. They also learned grief with a living subject. Grieving the child you imagined while setting boundaries with the one you have is not a skill you learn in school. They learn to say, "We love you," the answer is no, and then hang up. They learn to walk in the evenings. My dad learned how to use the little elliptical at the community center without turning purple. My mom learned how to make soup without crying into the broth. I learned something too. I learned that forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a hallway with many doors. Some open easily. I forgave my parents for calling me jealous when I was 12 because they were scared of losing joy again and thought joy lived only in one child at a time. Some doors jam. I am still prying open the one labeled airport. I tell myself it's because of the symbolism, the literal leaving of me behind. But it's also because in that moment, I chose to be the bigger person again. And I'm tired of wearing that dress. This isn't an Ada post. You can call me the jerk if you want. You can say, have compassion, she's 18. You can say, run. All of those might be true. Here's what's also true. The night the police took Sienna, my father made the sound of a man swallowing a lifetime of excuses. The day they knocked on my Seattle door, my parents set down the miracle narrative and picked up their daughter. There's an image I can't shake. It's not the airport counter or the pill organizer, not the knife or the court stamp. It's my mother at my tiny kitchen table, folding the napkin after dinner into smaller and smaller squares until it became a question mark in her hands. She looked at me and said, "Do you still want us?" And I realized that forgiveness is sometimes the quietest yes in the world. Remember when I told you I stepped back at the airport? I left out one detail. While Dad argued with the agent and Mom clutched our boarding passes like they were rosary beads, I took a photo over Sienna's shoulder. She had my dad's email open on his phone. The sent folder showed a 1:13 a.m. message to the airline with my booking reference and one sentence, "Please cancel the fourth traveler." I never showed my parents that photo. I didn't need to. They found their own evidence in a nightstand drawer thousands of miles away. But I keep that photo as a reminder that intuition is a skill, not a superstition. A week after my parents returned home from Seattle, a letter arrived addressed to Sienna from a law office we didn't recognize. Before you panic, it wasn't a lawsuit. It was a notice that her friend's landlord was pursuing eviction for unpaid rent and material disturbances. Sienna had two choices: find a new place or move in with a cousin who agreed to one condition: no outbursts, or she's out. Sienna moved in. She lasted 9 days. Then she called my mother at 2:04 a.m. and said, "I'm ready to talk to someone. Will you help me find a therapist who doesn't hate me?" My mother said yes. Not because we owe Sienna endless chances, but because boundaries are the best soil for help to root. 2 mornings ago, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of a small velvet box, the kind that holds a gold locket, and a message. "I found this in a pawn shop. It has your great-grandmother's photo inside. Is this yours?" The shop was 30 miles away. I drove there, hands, ice, and heart animal. It was mine. The engraving was scratched, the chain different, the pressed forget-me-not gone, but it was my locket, the one I'd last held 6 years ago. The owner said a teenage girl with too much eyeliner had brought it in once upon a time. I paid more than it was worth and less than it meant. I'm wearing it now as I record this. It sits at the base of my throat, a small moon. It doesn't make me noble. It doesn't erase a canceled ticket or a drawer of stolen pills or a knife glittering under kitchen light. It just reminds me that some things come back not to fix you, but to say, you were not crazy. This happened. You survived. So would I forgive my parents? I'm trying. Would I let Sienna back into my life? Not without the treaty. Not without proof she can sit in a room without setting it on fire. And if you're listening to this, and you are the older sibling who became a witness no one believed, this part is for you. Document, boundary, breathe. You don't have to choose between being kind and being safe. You're allowed to step out of the role you were assigned. You're allowed to say, I will not be canceled from my own life. If your parents finally saw the truth after years of favoritism, but only because your sister wrecked their vacation and got arrested, would you forgive them? Or would you keep your distance and protect your peace? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening.